And boom, we are live. Hello and welcome everybody to the Wide World of Warhammer. With me today is, man, this guy's got the most beautiful facial hair to date, and like, what a majestic human being. We got Nic Wright on the show. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm really well, especially after that intro. I've never really been called majestic before, but I will fucking cop it. I don't think I am, but here we are.
Oh, look, he's a world-traveled man, literally and figuratively. I mean, we was just talking behind the scenes about his global expeditions, and we'll talk more about it, I'm sure, later on. But we're here to talk about the superior Warhammer game, as Nic likes to call it, Age of Sigmar, right?
Yeah, literally.
Literally, yeah, as someone who used to play 40k and now has transitioned over to Age of Sigmar as his main game. So you're talking all about it, and also a bit about the AoS Worlds, which is coming up in just over a month, and Team Australia, which we're all about. So, but before we deep dive into all things Age of Sigmar and team events, which we're big stands of, Nic, I'll get you to introduce yourself for people who've never heard your majestic voice before or seen your beautiful face either.
Yeah, g'day everyone. Listen, before I do, I will just say, obviously, whenever you jump on these kind of shows or podcasts or chat with friends or whatever it is, you always have a couple of minutes before the show where you chat with the host, and that was probably the amount of topics we just covered in those 5 minutes where we just chatted. We spoke about getting arrested in France, of public nudity. We spoke about autism. There was not a single topic we didn't cover. So I can't wait for the next hour. I'm sure we'll talk about Age of Sigmar at some point, but we might need to get the viewers to kind of maybe get us back on topic if we forget to talk about it for half an hour or so. So just please note, viewers. Listen, yeah, my name's Nic. I go by Russell Crowe AoS. I just think Russell Crowe's really great. I love Gladiator. I think he's a weapon. He threw a phone at someone once. I'm not sure if that was his highest moment or not, but it was pretty funny in retrospect. And I love that he's super overweight now. I think he's just a real man. You know what I mean? He had a real peak in Gladiator, and then he just went, fuck it, I'm done. My career can't get better than that, so I might as well just get fat and live life. And now he sings in pubs around the world. Like, are you kidding? What a dream. What a man. Unbelievable. So yeah, I'll go by that because I think it's really funny. And there was one review show that Honest Wargamer did where I'd used this name, and he was like, Russell Crowe? Is that actually Russell Crowe? And then he went nuts and he thought for a little bit that Russell Crowe genuinely played Warhammer. And then Henry Cavill came along and kind of legitimized the whole concept. So fucking how good's that? So yeah, that's where that kind of came from. No real logic towards it.
There we go. And I guess like other celebrities, just he started the trend of owning part of South Sydney Rabbitohs early on. I don't know if he still does, and then the Ryan Reynolds and stuff just copied it along. I mean, we welcome the Wrexham, right? So I mean,
typical America.
Typical America. Just they're always the worst versions, right? The British TV shows are always the best ones, and then the American ones are just trash. But that's a whole other topic. We'll talk about AoS, I swear. So so I alluded to before that you used to play 40k and now you play AoS. So what was like your hobby journey? Like, so how long have you been in the hobby for people who don't know?
Yeah, my timelines, I think this is probably the same for a lot of people. My timelines are pretty fucked because of COVID. Like in my head, I've been playing for like 2 years, but it's definitely not true. I think I've been saying 2 years for like 4.5 years now. So I think it was rather right as COVID kicked off, I think. And that's called COVID-19. So I think that was 2019, right? Math, yeah, checkmate. So I think it was around then, mate, that we were just with some friends on Stradbroke Island, and we were hanging in the beach, and two of them were talking about this game, and I went, "Are you guys talking about Warhammer?" And they were like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Fuck, I thought that like blew up. Like I didn't, as a kid, I used to collect white dwarves and enter painting competitions, but I never played." And then yeah, like literally 2 hours later in the tent that night, I looked at my fiance and went, "I think I'm going to play Warhammer again." And she just rolled her eyes and went, "Fucking hell!" And so here we are, like a couple of years later. So I played 40k for about 18 months, I think it was, with the normal blokes. Shout out to my homeboys. Still my main club, love them. Denise, old Palpatine, I like to call him. And yeah, he recruited me into the club after a couple of months of playing, and just loved it. Hey, the sense of like just community and camaraderie and as a creative outlet, I think for I'll say men's mental health, it's obviously I wish the hobby was more inclusive, but I will say this because of the community that I'm in. But yeah, for men's mental health, I think it's an incredible outlet. It's obviously very fun, but just the multifaceted nature of this hobby that you don't have to be competitive. You just want to pick up a paintbrush and paint your woes away. Like that's just fantastic. There's not too many things in the world like that. And I think it's a really unique community. So that's kind of what got me in. And then it turns out I really love the game. And yeah, so I started 40k. And then it was in ninth edition. Actually, what broke my back was when they fucked the orc buggies over. When they reduced those units from 3 to when you can only take 1. I was a dirty man, That really, really buckled me. So, yeah, that was the final tools down for me. There'd been a number of things that they'd kind of cut. And then when they finally, I just finished painting like 27 buggies. They were beautiful and converting them and shit. I like cut a shock dragster in half, created like portals with hot wire glue and stuff and made it like jumping in and out. It was so sexy. And yeah, they did that. And I went, you assholes. So I said, this needs to take a rest. And looked at Age of Sigmar, started painting it, and then fell in love with the double turn. And then here we are, making it rain.
Well, there you go. That's what matters, right? The double turn. I'm sure we'll talk about it before later on. So, but are you still bleeding greed in AoS World, or have you gone to a different faction?
Yeah, great question. I've got a green heart, so I definitely am. I'm actually traveling with an Ironjawz army in my suitcase. As we were talking about in the pre-show, I've got a very limited wardrobe. I think I own like 5 pairs of ruggers and 1 pair of long pants. And so I bought 3 ruggers and 1 set of long pants and the 5 shirts I own, which just goes in a backpack. So I had a whole suitcase free to do nothing with. So that fit half of it's Warhammer army. The other half is photography gear. So that was quite perfect for this year off that I'm on. So yeah, I've got an Ironjawz army with me. So still Oryx at heart. Lots and lots of fun. They're the worst army in the game, statistically at the moment, which is good. It's a good place to be. Little battler. And they're fantastic. I love them. I absolutely love them.
Yeah, I mean, you better love them, right? And like, I know, obviously, for people who've not seen you before, you got the Wurzag as your profile picture. So, have you got set up like a nice retirement home for him as you enter into 4th edition, or?
Yeah, a little bit too soon, mate. Yeah, listen, the old Wurgog bone splitters are getting squatted. If you didn't think that was happening, you were living with your head up your ass. Honestly, that's been they couldn't have like made it more obvious that was going to happen. So, I kind of had my sad story, my reflection a couple of months ago. So he's already in the grave at home, which is very sad. But I guess I could rebase them and play them in Old World. But I don't know. Old World's got different charms. I don't think I'll play green in Old World. I think I'll try and be on the good team in Old World.
Well, there you go. Maybe switch of allegiances. I mean, you'll join all your other normal blokes, brethren, basically in playing Old World. So you just go back and see them again. But you alluded to before. Exactly. So you alluded to before that you've been traveling. So like, what the hell is this? Is this like a big Warhammer holiday that you've just been traveling all around the world for, or what's been going on?
Listen, my fiance's in the other room, and I swore to her that it had nothing to do with Warhammer, but secretly it is. No, just kidding. It's I don't know. This is to answer this question, I think to keep it short, we don't really like believe in the whole like retirement concept. You know what I mean? Like people are kind of just like, I feel like we kind of stick to this structure. We slave away for 60 years. Our bodies get more and more fucked the older we get. Problems increase. And that's a terrible ladder. Do you know what I mean? That's a terrible crossover on any graph. I'm shit at math, but that's not good, right? And so we thought, fuck it. We've got all these savings. We've been working our tits off for 10 years. So let's just go traveling. Let's do it now. Like, let's just jump in while we're fit. When I say fit, I mean can walk without assistance. It's pretty low bar. But yeah, and we just thought, let's just do it. So we've been doing like house sitting and things like this around Europe, which has been fantastic to keep costs low and also to meet amazing people. Like some of the connections we've made have just been out of this world. Like we've met sports stars from other countries and like just all these really cool people just looking after their pets and that. So not what we expected, but you really get a really good local grounded perspective when you travel like this. And yeah, we're super fortunate that we can do it over a long scale. And it's been good, but I do miss Australia a lot. Australia is an unbelievable country. We are so lucky, so lucky. I miss Parmesanas more than anything.
Oh, there you go. That's true answer to every person's question. It's like, what do you miss most from home? Parmesanas. So there we go.
Unbelievable.
The fairy bread, Parmesanas. There we go.
Fairy bread is pretty good too. Actually, I forgot about that. Maybe pie.
Switch them over. But I understand. So this trip ends up, and this I guess the main topic of the show is AoS Worlds. So for people who are unaware, Nick, so what is AoS Worlds? Like, what is it?
Listen, and this is an uneducated opinion, as all of my opinions are, but I'm pretty sure I could confidently say it's very similar to the 40K teams event that they host every single year. This is WTC, right? Correct.
You got it.
Yes.
Correct.
It's just the Sigma version of WTC. I've now just realized that means World Team Championships, which is obviously what it is. Brilliant. And so it's just the Sigma version of that. So I think this year there's nearly 26 countries. Don't quote me on that, but there's a lot of countries involved. I didn't know there was that many countries in the world, so that's quite impressive. But that's quite a feat to have more countries than there is in the world participating in the AoS WTC. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's my first year, and we're lucky because we have the venerable Stuart Iron Gutsman McCowan as our capitan, and he's a bit of a veteran of the scene, and just general all-round gaming slut, really. He's just everywhere. He's got his finger in everyone's pie. He's a very busy man. I feel like sometimes he's got that time turner that Hermione has. He always has got too many projects going on, but we've got him, and then the other coach on the team is Nico, and he was the coach last year. So lots of experience at the top, which is fantastic, and it's been a real pleasure to learn off those two. So yeah, really looking forward to the event.
Hell yeah, that's fantastic. And I was looking through the roster before. I recognize a couple of names. Liam, so he was a dude. I actually played my first AoS event in Sydney. I played against him, and I heard about him obviously on the AoS Coach podcast a long time ago. He's an absolutely lovely human being. So I recognize a couple of those names and faces, and I'm keen to see how you guys go. So when is AoS Worlds? Like, when is it time-wise?
Yeah, so last weekend of June is when we kick off. So yeah, like 28, 29, 30, I think is the dates of June. I'm so terrible with that kind of thing. And there's a singles event just beforehand. Again, much like the 40K variant, I think, right, where it's the singles before you can optionally play if you've got the money to afford it after paying for the accommodation in Amsterdam, which, might I add, cost me what I would usually pay for 2 weeks worth of accommodation anywhere else in Europe for 6 days in Amsterdam. So if there's not hookers in my room, I don't know what I've actually paid for. So we'll soon find out. But it is Amsterdam, so who knows? Yeah, so apart from the hookers, yeah, so it's a 3-day event, same format in terms of 40K, very similar. In fact, I think identical points differential system to kind of ascertain the brackets and things like that and how it goes over the weekend. So yeah, last weekend of June, and it's going to be streamed on the T Sports Network, which are the guys, the Honest Wargamer. They streamed it last year, and which is really good because I'm hoping they can year on year build the quality of the stream and tailor it, because it was good last year, but it was a little quick flicking between tables. So hopefully this year they're going to get a chance to implement some of that feedback and really rip in. So it's not like the French stream though for 40K. That is crazy, isn't it?
It was a stream. I'll leave my opinions for later. Like, it was pretty good. Like, they also do some amazing stuff. Look, if I wanted to, look, I'll digress. I'm not going to put my tongue in my mouth.
I'm in France. Like, do you want me to just open the door and just tell them? I'll just put loudspeaker on. Boys.
No. But so that's great. Yeah, obviously the T Sports Network understands doing the stream and stuff again. So is it 8-man player teams, or is it because AoS is a smaller community? Maybe is it 5-player teams? So, but it's 8, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good question. It is an 8-man format, which is good. And I haven't done 8-man Sigma before. We've been scrimming a lot between members of the community, between ourselves, other countries, things like this. So we've obviously done it. I shouldn't say we haven't done it, but in real life, I haven't performed in it myself. So I'm really excited to be on the ground seeing it live. But yeah, it is the full 8-man.
Yeah, fantastic. So, so will you say that you're just going to be your first time doing 8-man teams? Is there not like an Australian equivalent at all? So obviously in the 40K community, we have ANZ TCs, which is a great state rep thing, but does that thing not exist in AoS just yet?
No, I think this is like this is a can of worms for me personally. And I will just say this, I'm an absolute nobody on the scene, genuinely, in terms of like, and I'm not being self-depreciating, just literally like that's how it is. I've only been playing it for a few years, and I only really kind of got into it competitively maybe more recently in the last year or two. I wanted to jump in. But the thing that Sigma lacks compared to 40K, and I'm so keen to see this grow in the years to come, and it will, because it is an increase in an understanding of where competitive play lies within the community. I think Sigma kind of started out in a really interesting manner, was kind of build your own game almost, I think, to a degree, like points. It was almost like, what's that Drew Carey show? You know, that one where it was, whose line is it anyway? Where the points don't matter. You know, that's what I always think of when I hear about the early days of Sigma, when it's just Drew Carey, just like, here's Gotrek, he does all the damage and the points don't matter. Like, it's just, it was a really wacky time. And I think that kind of set a tempo for many people that they struggled to let go of. So that the unlearning of that kind of mindset was, I think, has kind of kept the community in a certain way for a long time. And I think 40K has amazing event saturation and quality. So I think that's something that 40K nails, but we don't have an Australian New Zealand Masters at all, like in terms of team event, I should say. We've got a few team events that are big throughout the year. You know, shout out to Gabe, Brunak's incredible event. But most of the team events in Australia are this real, actually, I would just say most of the events are this real blend of like a very like hobby and competitive combo. It's a very homogenous community, I think, in that way, where they really respect both sides a lot more than 40K, which is something I think Sigma does better. The level of hobby in Sigma is through the roof. Like, I can't tell you the amount of times I've masturbated at events in front of people's armies because they're so fantastic. Never done that at a 40K event. So that's proof.
Well, maybe right now the standard of hobby is getting better at 40K, but not nowhere near the level of AoS just yet. But maybe soon you'll reach that culmination eventually, but not just yet. So, so with the teams event, so you said that you haven't done any scrims or anything like that. So one thing that I know in the 40K community people do when they don't have those domestic 8-man team events is use Tabletop Simulator, and they have like national teams doing scrims. Do you guys do that at all?
Yeah, we've been doing that heaps. We've been essentially, our team's been pretty much formatted 100% for nearly 6 months now, which is really good. So we've been able to, there's no doubt some cheeky comments. Oh, I should turn them on. Oh, here we go. Yeah, there's been, yeah, I'm chasing the laws after me, Brad. Europol's probably outside. But yeah, no, we weren't talking about masturbation. We were talking about
Tabletop Simulator.
Tabletop Simulator, yeah, very similar. So the TTS, we've been jamming that a ton, absolutely heaps. And it's a fantastic vessel. We've got people from all around the world, like, you know, for example, one of our coaches in London, Stuart's in Japan. We've got a legend from Manila. Like, you know, we've got people from all over, and even time zones. We've got people from Western Australia. We had to include them, you know, inclusion and diversity thing. So, you know, Western Australia. Anyway, he's also a Kiwi, so it was 2 birds, 1 stone, and he's also good. So it was kind of rude not to, really. What do you do? But yeah, so it's just super easy to kind of bring a team together online. I don't think the wider Sigma community in Australia loves it so much, if I'm honest. I think the opinion is that it's not as good, it's not as traditional. I fucking hate tradition, so I don't know, that doesn't bother me. Everywhere I go, I try and turn a tradition on its head if I can. So yeah, I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, so like, do you guys organize? So obviously you've used it a little bit, I understand. So, but do you guys like do scrims and stuff against other teams, or is it just all internal testing?
No, we do a lot of internal testing, but yeah, we also do scrims against different teams as well. Like, and it's a good chance for the boys to kind of connect with the players as well that are going to be at Worlds, because, like, personally, that's one of the main reasons I've been making a big effort to connect with the Worlds teams from the countries, in their countries when I'm here, because when I go to Worlds, there's always that awkward, like, oh, hey, how are you? My name's Nick. But I'm Russell Crowe. Like, it's just, you know, it's always the way with, you know, 26 times 8 is a lot. I don't know how many that is, but, you know, there's a lot of, you know, big, white, fat, sweaty, autistic men in a room. There's only so much that we can take in at once. You know what I mean? As a community, we're all the same. So I think that it's nice to get a bit of a, you know, butter the toast before we put a bit of Vegemite on it, as it were. So yeah, it's been fantastic. And the international scrims have really allowed the boys to kind of see how not just those metas are in those countries, but how those players play as well. Because this is the same in 40K. Every country plays in a pretty specific way Do you know what I mean? Like some countries are very fastidious. Some countries are a bit loosey-goosey. Oh, can I take this back? Like, and I think you really need to have a strong identity when you go into these tournaments to be able to kind of hold your own. Otherwise, sometimes someone might just walk over you.
Absolutely. So what's the identity with Team Australia as a whole? Like in the 48K community, we have, like, I guess, an identity of unique list creators and designers, and they do wacky shit, but then are amazing at the pairings process. Is there an identity similar in AoS?
Yeah, like I don't want to give too much away because there might be a few little trade secrets here, but the international joke is, I'll tell you that at least, is that Australia is just, our play is just representative of our country, I think, which is just destruction. You know what I mean? Like it's one of the alliances in Age of Sigmar, and it's all about just big monsters and like bashy shit, which is Australia, really. So I think it's quite fair representation, isn't it? So yeah, that's what the international community thinks. I was in Norway just this last weekend for a teams event there, which was so much fun. Honestly, one of the best events I've been to in such a long time. Let me tell you this, actually, this is a slight digression. This clubhouse, I kid you not, it was bigger than my house. Like it was 4 stories in the middle of the CBD, and every single of the 300 members has a locker. And like, there's tables out in the wazoo. There's a hobby room. There's a streaming room. Beers on tap. This place is out of this world. Like, if you ask anyone to draw Mecca, or they will draw this in the Warhammer community. It was fantastic. So we got to spend a weekend there jamming, and I took Iron Jaws, obviously, because that's the army I have with me, and the amount of shit I got from the Norwegians. Oh, typical Australian playing destruction. Here we are, and I was like, "What do you do?"
And then what did you do? Just go smash face? Or you did your best?
I did my best. Yeah. I went 3-2. Which I was very happy with. I got paired into some pretty rubbish stuff, if I'm honest. Like some of the battle plans, I was like, you know, when the captain's like, which one of these do you want? And you're like, I just don't want that. Anything else but that, and I'm fine. And then that's all I got. I was like, okay, that's fair enough. But I went 3-2, which I was super happy with considering how rubbish Iron Jaws are. And I could have won the 4th game, but I didn't play very well. So that's how it is. He rolled better. I played shit.
Mistakes are made.
1 + 1's 2. Exactly.
Oh, but realistically, you're the 5-0, but you're just giving them a bit of a lift, right? You're sandbagging a little bit to under some things. Yeah. We know what's up. So all good. You talked about.
I'm just fine.
Oh, sorry. That's all right. You talked about about the battle plan. So obviously, understanding the teams event, it's very different to 40K, where you have different missions for the one round. Can you elaborate a bit more on that one?
Yeah. So let me just pull it up here. So in the world pack, essentially the way that it works is you've got like 4. Actually, question for you. I don't know if this is this different to 40K. In my head, it's the same, but maybe this is.
Yeah, it's different. It's different.
How does the 40K version work?
So for 40K and 8-man teams, you can play the one mission, and it's the same across all 8 players. And you have the like 2 lights, 4 mediums, and 2 heavy tables, essentially. So, whereas in AoS, I understand you have 4 different
noise cancelling headphones are clearly getting to it.
She loves it, I'm sure. So, otherwise, I understand AoS, there's like 4, or looking at the Worlds Packer, there's 4 different missions, but then I don't know what the table layouts are for there. I'm going to pull them up on the screen as well, so people can
so there's a few different things here that kind of play into it a little bit. And we actually ran a fundraiser event at the start of the year with cheeky shout out to the Northern Alliance in Brisbane, huge non-for-profit, excellent gaming club if you're around. And those boys helped us run a fundraiser event where we ran a bit of a custom. Actually, you did a recap with some of the guys that went. That's right. And we did a bit of a custom layout there. And because one of the big changes between AoS and Sigmar is that terrain is not, in this edition, terrain is not as impactful in any way, shape, or form. I think in 40K, we've all played on Planet Bowling Ball. If you go out, I'm not going to shout out the event, but we all know the one in Queensland, where they have just no terrain. And so you just take a gun line because, you're just going to be able to touch everyone's butthole and then you're going to win. So that's a good time. But in Sigmar, if you look at it on paper, they all look like Planet Bowling Ball, but there's just not as much shooting. So it kind of is irrelevant And because of the lack of light, medium, heavy, which can change in 40k the dynamic of a matchup quite drastically, potentially, right? In Sigma, imagine that the battle plans do the exact same thing, I guess is how you would think. So it's not that Geomantic Pulse is a light and Frigid Zephyr is a medium and Springly Traps are heavy, but it's that they all have an intricate rule set that really some armies will want to play into and some are really bad for. So, for example, in Frigid Zephyr, you can't see, like, opponents outside of 12 inches aren't visible to you. And from the first battle round, you roll a dice, and on essentially on a 6-up on the first battle round, the Zephyr, the Squall, goes away, and then it's full visibility. But that's quite rare to do, so it gets less and less as the game goes on. But you can imagine if you're a full tilt shooting army, that's a terrible mission for you because you can't do your main damage until about turn 2 or 3, and they've got a really big protection advantage. So that's just a very basic example, but essentially what happens is, much like 40k in this one, you put a defender up, or whatever it's called. Someone calls it different everywhere in the world. 2 attackers are put up, they choose one, the attackers go back in your hand, and then rinse and repeat for each mission until the last battle plan is kind of sometimes automatically decided, because of what gets rejected is automatically put to it. So that's the generic formula for it. And it's interesting. It's really fun. There's lots of to and fro and little tricks that you can kind of pull, much like 40k. But yeah.
That sounds fantastic, and I appreciate you explaining what Frigid Zephyr was and how that sort of differs for shooting armies versus how melee armies could be used, or how you utilize the battle plan and object mission to your advantage. And I could definitely think of some 40k examples where, if a tournament was to adopt that, how they could use such a thing. So, which is really cool, and maybe we'll see it in the future. But I don't know, our small brain 40k players maybe just need the simplicity and straight line forward thinking, and just need the tables to be different, not the mission plans. So, look,
it is true. You are stupid. Yeah. That is exactly logic. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Look, I don't know if we had a recent recap where, and I've had it multiple times, where different tournament players play the wrong mission, even if everyone's supposed to be playing the same mission. So, look, with all these interpretations of the different missions, mate, we might have the whole repertoire. People will be so lost. So, I don't know.
Just do it all.
Probably can't do it. So I guess one thing that obviously people are well aware of is Age of Sigmar 4th edition is around the corner. Have people lost interest for Worlds because 4th edition's around the corner, or are people still frothing for it?
Yeah, it's such a good question, man. I think this kind of touches on there's 2 parts to this. The first part is that the Age of Sigmar community is so much smaller, right? And the competitive scene in the Sigmar community is smaller of a smaller. You know what I mean? It's one slice of a smaller pie again. So it's I would say in that slice or in that circle, the World is still a really big event for us. I do think the wider community, a lot of people have kind of drifted out to play other game systems, or are just taking this chance to hobby, playing Magic or whatever. Often these things we dabble in a few circles, or God forbid, 40k maybe. But there's heaps of, I think, community who are still invested. And I think what will no doubt happen is everyone's hyping for 4th right now. And then on the 17th, they drop all the rules, and they've got some games that they're showcasing as well. And then that means that it'll be a couple of weeks of people bitching and moaning, sharing an opinion that they're not really qualified to have or share, but they will anyway. And then after that, that'll die off until it releases in just after Worlds. And that's that golden window where interest in World will go poof again, because the timelines, if that makes sense, I think that's how it'll happen. So if anything, it works for me, because I'm happy to I'm super busy, keep squirreling away in the background. And I think what 4th will do really well is it's going to bring in a whole slew of community who haven't played the game before. So I'm really excited for that.
That more than fair. I think it'll bring back a lot of the community. I know I was talking to your mate Corey. So over the weekend, I played him in the 40k event. And he was so sick of. What, you roll your eyes? what a kid! No.
Hate him.
Good dude. He's good bloke. Hate him. Absolutely hate him though. And he was very keen for 4th edition, and so we'll see how it all goes. But on a similar line of thinking, so with the old world, like they came out, did people like lose interest? Like, did Age of Sigmar, because obviously Age of Sigmar replaced what was 8th edition? Did people like when the old world came out, did they go back to the old world, or a lot of people stayed into it and love it?
I think everyone was interested, right? Because if you've played the game for any amount of time, or so many of us were like, you know, when we were young and we couldn't afford this shit, you know, we're all povo. And then we suddenly get jobs and have less responsibility and go, hang on, I can afford all this plastic crap. Brilliant. That's why we're all here at the same age doing the same thing, right? A lot of people maybe were interested in fantasy, and then they read the rules and thought, hang on, I could read these old world rules, or I could go to university for 4 years, get a degree, and maybe get a different career. I could do either or. And some people went and read the old world rules, and then some people have gone back to university and gotten a full degree, and congratulations to them. It's just such a different system. You know what I mean? It's brilliant in its own way, but I think it's different parts of the community that it's attracting, which is smart from Games Workshop. But no, I don't think I've seen that many players from Sigma who have jumped to Old World. I've got a few friends who have, absolutely, but not many. I think if anything, more people are just kind of hobbying and doing whatever they want in this kind of lame duck era while they wait for 4th edition to roll around and then jump on board.
That's more than fair. And like, yeah, as you said, when the game comes out and the rules released, I'm sure the hype will build. And like, look, obviously everyone loves a bit of Skaven. I mean, those little rat boys are pretty sweet. So can't wait to see what it's all about. And we'll see how it all ends up. So yeah.
That cinematic was off the chain. Hey, did you see that cinematic?
It was pretty sweet. Yeah, it was very cool. Very, very cool.
I've never enjoyed a cinematic before, really. Maybe the old World of Warcraft ones are pretty sensual, but that was an amazing cinematic. I think James Workshop really nailed it. It actually made me enjoy Stormcast for like a minute and a half, and then I remembered that they're trash and shit, and they're boring and golden, and then I came back to reality. But that minute and a half was like, holy crap, this is what they could be.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, look. At least they started early on with the female Stormcast Eternals. That way, you didn't have a bunch of Spectrum Warriors, which are complaining at the very end about how there's some female Golden Custodes, which are the exact same thing. But
I love it.
We don't need to harp on that. I'll talk about that.
I love dumb people. They're my favorite, honestly. They keep the world going. I just shout out to them. Imagine caring enough about such a dumb thing. Like, why can't you just have everyone all in having fun together? Imagine being that stupid. Do you know what I mean? Fucking hell. Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah. Crazy. Anyway. So I also know, so you talked about there before how I'm surprised your player base is quite diverse. So you talked about someone living in Manila, you got a Kiwi living in WA, you got Stu who lives in Japan. So why do you have quite a diverse selection of people? Is it because you have such a small pool to select from, or are they just the best players who can represent Australia?
Yeah, it's a really good question, man. And I will definitely say I was not on the selection committee, so I am not the most qualified person to answer this in terms of its entirety. So I would put an asterisk, maybe 15 asterisks on this, and say Nic's opinion only. I think there's a few things. The players we've got in the team this year are freaking cracking hot, man. And what I love about it is they're not these big names, and not having a go at Eric Lathouris, he's got quite a long name, obviously, but he's just Greek, so what do you do, poor guy? But it's big names and big people in the community with that identity that people know about. Do you know what I mean? We've got a few in the Sigmar community from a competitive standpoint, and they're legends, right? Like Dave Kerr. Shout out to Dave, like one of the nicest people I've ever met, and a really cracking competitive player. But they know him overseas. They know his brand. They know about him. So we're really lucky this year, I think, that we've got people who in Australia have some, some names floating around, but they're not these big stars that people are going to be like, whoa, like I know what to expect from him. So I think we've really got that going for us this year. One of the other cool things that Australia does and likes to represent, like we are in actual international relations, I think we're always quite good with the underdog, you know what I mean? And supporting countries who maybe can't due to the size of their whatever, I'm thinking of some like Pacific Islands and things like that sometimes that we have relations with that, we help buff up certain parts of their tourism and things like this. I'm not going to go into details because I'm ignorant, but one of the reasons we've got one of the guys from Manila, which is in the Philippines. I'm so bad with geography, Christ. you'd think someone who's traveling the world at the moment, I'd be better, but I'm so embarrassingly shit at geography. I thought Prague was a country and it's actually a city. So yeah, that was only 2 weeks ago I learned that. So
you're enlightening yourself, Nick. It's all right. You're learning along the way. You thought there was only 26 countries in the world? Well, you probably visited more than 26 and you realize it probably isn't more than 26.
Yeah, oh, where did this one come from? Hey guys, I discovered one. Anyway, so yes, we've got Lance from Manila, who's an absolute champ. He is super good, super keen, and really skilled. Hey, like we did a scrim against them internationally, and he just stood out as an absolute beacon of play. And so, yeah, like they can't field a full team. And so we thought, what a brilliant way to supplement. You're allowed a certain amount of mercenaries. I think it's like 3 or 4 or something. And so we thought what a brilliant way to give this guy who wouldn't be able to attend this, who's super skilled. And I think this is something that in Australia, I would love both of our communities to do better in the coming years. I think we have a huge problem in Australia of accessibility. Like there's brilliant players all around the country that would look at something like this in 40K or Sigma or any system, right? And go, I wish I could do that. I think I'm good enough, but I can't afford it. I don't have the time or the money to do that. And that's bullshit. And that we have a rich community, really. If we can afford this hobby, we can afford, I think there's something we could all, I had an idea a little while ago where all the tournament organizers added $5 their tournaments all year round. And a pool, 40K does it, Age of Sigmar does it, and it goes in this big pool. And at the end of the year, it gets divvied out to players who represent the country. Maybe it's the golden ticket. They can apply and get like $500 or $1,000, like, and that kitty would build up super quick, right? So I think we've got a real opportunity to do better at that as a whole community, in both systems. Sorry for digressing, but I think the main point is accessibility, right? So that's one of the main reasons we have a real diverse crew. And just jokes aside, Geordie's actually an Australian. I think he's born in New Zealand, but isn't half of Australia. Like, have you been to the Gold Coast?
I mean, your own beloved, right? Like, I mean, we claim him as Australian. I mean, but is he? He's not. He wasn't born in Australia. So there you go, Mr. Russell Crowe himself. So
listen, I take great. I don't know about that. I might.
Don't believe in it. Don't believe in it. So, so something also that's sort of unique to, I guess, Team Australia and Age of Sigma is I understand you guys do a friendly tournament series with England and New Zealand. So, in the Ashes and the Tasman Cup, could you elaborate what these are about?
Yeah, for sure. Listen, I actually think this is the first year that we're not doing that this year. We have in the past. I think it's a good event. I think there's definitely some merit to it. Listen, I don't know the exact reasons why we're not doing it this year, but one of the main things I think was it's a pretty tough timing perspective. Like when you're fully wrapped up in this world tournament and you've been practicing and trying to predict what the different countries are doing, and then you're reading all these lists, and then suddenly you've kind of got to really overtune on this one matchup. It just doesn't really sit very well psychologically. And I think it's kind of, in the past maybe has led to the Australian team starting on a bit of a back foot, and we just don't really like that energy. So this year we made, I think, a really good decision to go, hey, if you want to do an Ashes, we could do it after the Worlds event when we're kind of chilling out if we're hanging around. But we just really want to focus on our prep this year and have a good time. So yeah, I think that's kind of where that kind of came from. As much as I really love the idea of the Ashes, but there's only so many moral victories the British can take from us, right? So they're probably out, or they've used all of them this year, really.
There you go. So well, I guess with that, so obviously it's a scrim between Team Australia and Team England, and then the Team Australia versus Team New Zealand for the Tasman Cup. Is Team New Zealand setting a team this year? Like, are you guys going to try and? No,
I don't think so. And again, happy to be wrong. I just don't think they had the community backing this year, like the push. I'm not sure 100% why not, but I would hope in years to come that jumps back on, because I'm a huge fan of the Kiwis. They're just absolute legends and they're such beautiful spirits. I've never met a bad one. So I'd love for them to come along, but I don't think so this year. But again, happy to be wrong on that.
But they may show up unannounced and say, "What's up?" So they'll be the 27th country to join. Like, that's the one.
Kia ora, everyone. Kia ora.
Beautiful. So with the AoS World, so for people who don't know, I guess maybe the history and legacy. Who are some of the biggest teams to look out for? So, you, I guess, alluded to. So, Team England sounds like they're a very strong competitive team, but who are some of the big hitters of the scene?
So there's a few different countries that are quite large. I'm just going to use this chance to really just throw shit at a whole bunch of countries, to be honest. This is great. But I think England are good. I think they think they're really good, but that's just the English way, right? Like they're looking up all the time. So they're tripping over all the time because they can't see the ground. They're falling over, but that's just British rule, So, but they're good. They're good players, nice guys. From a people perspective, they're lovely, but skill, not sure. But I think England does a good job in the lead up to Worlds. They kind of write a lot of really interesting lists, and then they kind of give it out, and then everyone does better with it. So do what you will with that information. Denmark won it, I think, last year. They're pretty cracking hot. But in the Nordic Masters this year, Norway beat Denmark, last year's champions. So who knows? So not sure on that one. That's going to be pretty interesting. There's some hot stuff coming out of Northern Europe. The Spanish boys have been pumping along. We scrimmed them a couple of weeks ago, flogged them. So don't know where that's about, if that's the standard. Just kidding. They played really well. And they were super lovely. We only just won. But that was a brilliant, brilliant game. I was really lucky. I spent a heap of time with a lot of the Italians. When I was in Italy, I went to a massive tournament there. And they are just so fun. It's going to be... I really, really, really hope that I just don't get arrested in Amsterdam. That's like my one goal. They are really naughty, and I just don't know what's going to happen. We got on too well. It was really sad. So, yeah, that's going to be a time. But there's a lot of strong countries in Sigmar, I think. And obviously, just like 40K, the US has a whole heap of names. It's like a tick box of who's who. In 40K, it's the same. Siegler and Lennon, and I forget the other guys' names, but they're all there. And Sigmar's no different, right? Like, they've got a lot of big name communities, and it's just because of the size of the community and how televised that is, right? Like, they have 20 events for Australia's 2, or 1. It's just crazy how many events they have. So you always see these names popping up, and they've got a lot of skilled players. So surely they'll have to be having a red hot crack this year, I reckon.
Yeah. So yeah, that's more than fair. It sounds like some very familiar names, but I'm surprised no mention of the Poles, but maybe that's just a 40K thing where the Polish in 40K are amazing and they've historically been savants, but or the Germans for that matter, but maybe they'll come out and smash it. So I'm sure
it's a good one.
They're all...
I did play against... so I didn't play against. I hung out at the Norwegian event. There was 2 of the Polish boys there. Awesome, awesome folk. That was such a highlight meeting them. And they were on the winning team for the teams event that I was in Norway. They murked for one of the boys there. So you're right. They I don't think they're quite at savant level as the 40K Poles. I know they've always been like, I'm just going to play this one Eldar matchup for 15 years so I can just smash everyone when they think it's crap kind of level. But if those 2 guys are anything to go by, you're right. They'll be a really, really sexy team.
Yeah, and what's the reputation for Team Australia as a whole? Like, how have we gone historically at this AoS World?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of an interesting question. And again, asterisk times 15, Nick's opinion. I'm very lucky that I haven't been in the community for a super long time. And sometimes it's really frustrating because I don't know some of these kind of answers, right? Because I haven't been here for like 10 years. Well, AoS hasn't been around for 10 years, but like since the start. And I think what happened was Sigmar, I alluded to it before, where Sigmar had a very casual beginning. And I think that kind of set the tone in Australia for a really long time. And my opinion is that I think some people have struggled to move past that. I think they've kind of allowed their own experience to kind of create a bias against what the potential of the system is versus what it actually is. And so I think in some years, not necessarily in the most recent ones, but in years gone by, it's been just a piss up event where Aussies just kind of go over and the goal is just to get rinsed and have a good time. And I think there's that kind of, I think in some states, they kind of still think it is that. But that's just classic groupthink or just confirmation bias, right? Where if you've got 5 mates who all think the same thing, guess what you're going to think? The same fucking thing, right? So go out into the community, find someone who thinks different to you that you like, and make them your mate so you're a better person. But that's not necessarily how punters who play Warhammer work, right? So, but I think that's really one of the things in Australia that sets the tone is that we're not a hugely competitive nation, whilst we have very competitive singles players. I think at a teams level, it's a different beast. And so I think last year we came 11th, and the year before we came 11th. Actually, funny story from the Norwegian teams. I was having dinner with them after, or one of the guys after, sorry, and he was like, "Oh yeah, last year we came 11th," and I was like, "No, you didn't. We came 11th last year." And he's like, "No, we came 11th," and we had this like 30-minute argument about who came 11th of all fucking places. Like not a great result, And afterwards, I was like, "Did we just argue about this, really?" And we did come 11th, so they were wrong. But I think any player would look at that and go, we can do better than that. And so that's the goal this year, man. Like for me personally, as one of the coaches, I'm like, I really want to, I just want to year-on-year build, year-on-year growth. And I would be super proud. The game's in a bit of a weird spot, but I think it's ultra balanced, really, for a competitive game. There's some really nice balance in AoS at the moment. They've really carved out a lot of the shit. So fingers crossed it's going to be a ripping Worlds.
And I can get better with 4th edition. And I'm keen to see where all this innovation and tech comes out with the AoS Worlds, which in just over a month. So hooroo. So obviously I understand. So you have a raffle going on right now. So do you mind just plugging what that's all about? So obviously,
for sure.
For how expensive the trip is, and like obviously it's expensive Australians, and I know the WTC folk have a very similar story. So, but like I understand you guys running a raffle, so feel free to plug that and tell us what it's all about and what some of us goodies can get from said raffle.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, we're really lucky this year. We well, it wasn't really luck, to be honest with you. Over the last 6 months, I've been working out super hard with these stores to really try and ramp up an awesome goodies bundle. So, but they're just we have in Australia, the thing we have better than any country, I reckon. Our stores are fan-freaking-tastic. Like we have the biggest legends running them, and that community is exceptional. So we've got a few major sponsors. We've got Wargamers Hub. So John Canisi up in northern Brisbane, absolute king in the community. And you can buy anything from him. So he's put a heap of vouchers and a little bit of AoS stock as well into the raffle. He also sponsored the event. So he gave all the prizes for that event, which a lot of people won, which was sweet. We have Emperor, which I know you guys are super familiar with. They've been a main sponsor of Down Under for ages, right?
Correct. Yeah, you're correct. Yep.
Yep, absolute legends. Brother Jacob and the crew. I used to buy all my 40K off them. They're just... It sounds so specific, but their delivery is so good. I've never had Warhammer rock up on a Sunday before, except for with them, and it's heaven. It's porn. It's unbelievable. It's like, what's going on here? So that's amazing. And obviously, the Northern Alliance ran that event, and we raised a good amount of money for our team as well from that event. So they're one of our major sponsors, and then one of the other sponsors is Gap Games as well. So Brett and those guys, they just work like absolute bees, man. They've created such an empire. And yeah, it just really, really their range is unbelievable. So I'm only assuming that's Geordie. Sorry, mate. Kia ora. But yeah, so those guys have really jumped on board, and the prize pool is just under $5,000 at the moment. So most of it's vouchers as well. I tried to make it quite system agnostic, so that our 40K crew, if they want to jump on board and buy some tickets, they're $5 for a ticket. It's piss. You can't even get a bloody sausage roll anymore for that. So, do your math, go figure, and speak to your accountant, because I can't give you financial advice. I'm an influencer. But that is kind of that's kind of the prize we're looking at. So yeah, the event's just crazy, man. It's the same with the Team Australia 40K. Getting 10 sweaty, heavy dudes over there with armies is just buckling. So it just is what it is. Every dollar just really helps carve it out. But I like to give you a figure alone. It'll easily be 5,000 Australian dollars per person with flights and a comm and the event and jerseys and the accoutrement that you're going to chuck in. And that's not even including alcohol. If anyone wants to get on the piss, Christ, Amsterdam, I don't know what they're going to. I had to sell someone else's kidney in Norway to buy 4 beers the other weekend. So he's doing all right. He's on dialysis now, but he'll live. He'll be fine. But the beers in Amsterdam can't be much better, right? So I really can't imagine that it's going to be a cheap event. So
yeah,
we'll see how it goes.
I'm no culinary expert, but isn't I think Heineken maybe a Dutch beer? I might be completely wrong there. So, but maybe possibly who knows? That's a beer.
Otherwise, I'll just buy water and get the same fucking result. That's the weakest piss beer you've ever seen. It's worse than bloody VB. Oh, kill me now.
That's pretty.
I might even pull out from the team if that's true, mate.
Oh, sorry, you're gallivanting around the world the whole year, and then the up to AoS Worlds is a pinnacle event, and you just find out now, like at the very end. It sounds like almost like, I don't know, let's see the movie like Little Miss Sunshine, where the guy, he's trying to be a pilot, like trying to be like dedicated to being a pilot, and then he realizes just for after train he's colorblind, and he's like, I can't be a pilot. Oh, just the whole world just falling apart.
It's literally it, man. If it's Heineken, that is terrible news for everyone. Unless they don't drink beer, in which case that's fantastic for them because it's not really beer, is it?
No, not at all. So, you mentioned them before. Obviously, I think they'd be a great influencer. But I know in the AoS community, so AoS coach, he's shaking his head. So, AoS coach or Anthony Magro, he's quite a big figure in the AoS scene. So, does that help Australia at all in sort of, I guess, influence at all, or not? It's a completely different communities.
Listen, regardless of what you think of him, you've got to rate that he rocks a singlet whenever he can. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a level of strength associated with that garb, and I got to rate that. You know, like, I think that's quite a shout out for Magro. I love the singlet that he rocks. It's so iconic. But in all seriousness, I think that we're lucky in Australia. We've got some really cool, international stage influencers, I call them usually, but these guys are actually good. Plastic Crack. You know, Pete has been writing that blog and punching out really humorous, but kind of actually nuanced material for a little while now. Like, as you said, AoS Coach, he's been putting out a lot of like Man Reed's book. I think is kind of a bit more his style at the moment. I feel like maybe he's got something going on life-wise, maybe work. I don't really know him at all, but his content was pumping for a bit there. And then about 6 months ago, it really started just being Man Reed's book. So I hope he's all good. But I think in Australia, we don't really have a dedicated Sigma, like competitive, moment. There's a few people who kind of try, but I don't know. My opinion is their opinion is, it's one of those things. So I think Anthony hits his, if I can go on that, AoS Coach, I should go on, well, his fucking dad. AoS Coach hits his target market. I don't personally listen to his content. That's not to say I don't like it. It's just not aimed at me, I think. For what I enjoy from the hobby, I really enjoy painting and I really enjoy competitive, and he's kind of in the middle. So I think that's where he kind of hits that niche. So yeah, if you're chasing that, we're lucky in Australia that we've got people who are repping the hobby and building the community, which is good. And he's running a huge event down in Sydney. So I'm actually back in Australia for it. So I might even try and shimmy down and see if I can punch some skulls in with some Oryx or something if I can get there.
Hell yeah. Yeah, the Sydney 40K GT is like one of the biggest GTs in Australia now, right? Because is CanCon now officially done, or is it still going on?
The old CanCon. Yeah, where CanCon it can. I don't really know. I know it ran this year. I was traveling, couldn't go to it. I went last year. It's a huge event. Canberra's pretty shit, to be honest with you. But yeah, you got to do what you got to do. But I don't know if it's going to be popping next year. I think CanCon had a couple of problems, right? Like when you kind of associate yourself with these big conventions, you have to abide by their weirdo rules. I remember I had a chat with Clint once, who used to run it. Awesome dude. Also, funny story with Clint. One time, I hope I can say this on this podcast, but if not, just bleep it out. We're live. Fuck it. The one time I walked up past him and I was super pissed. I think it was at Runax, actually. I was so drunk. It was just after we won it, actually. So it was really good. Really good day. I was really excited. And I walked past him, and the way he was sitting, his shirt said Clint. But if you're familiar with the term kerning, like which is the spacing between letters, right? The L and the I were really close, and it looked like it said cunt. And so I walk up and I was like, "G'day, cunt," and just said it at his face. And he was like, and I showed him, and then he laughed and laughed. We had a good chat. But that was the first time I ever met Clint. So yeah, if your name's Clint and you're getting a shirt printed, just be aware of your kerning between your L and your I, because together it's a U. But yeah, so he's a legend. But I know he had said to me a little while ago that there was a whole lot of like hoops that he had to jump through to get that up and running, and the costs associated with eye-watering. So I think Australian tournament scene is ripe for some bastard to just buy a huge warehouse in Alice Springs or something and just everyone fly out there and just get into it for a couple of days in the heat and just go for gold.
Look, I mean, the South Australia community took over and did their own thing. So maybe in AoS in the community future, there's something going to be different. But look, CanCon has been a staple, and then hopefully it can improve and different things can happen. But anyway, so we don't need to talk about that. So as before we wrap things up, Nick, so was there anything else you wanted to shout out or promote before we round up the show? So obviously you had the raffle before. Any other plugs or things you wanted to say?
I don't have any other plugs, man. I'll probably do, and I've just forgotten about it. And then I'll get a text afterwards being like, "You should have said this, you idiot." And I'll be like, "That's a good point." But tough tits. But no, man. Just if you're, no matter what system you are, is probably what I would say. Like 40K taught me the ropes, and then Sigma is kind of where I found my passion. I think you should just be open-minded and curious. Like there's amazing communities in all systems. I even played Lord of the Rings. I played a game of Middle Earth with a random guy in Germany. Turns out he was on the German team, and he was a freak. He was a savant. He absolutely pushed my shit in with his little Spectre army. I didn't even know what they did. One of the funnest games on this trip I've had. So this community is all around the world. So just be really open-minded. And if you feel patriotic or really rich and have a spare $5, because I know times are not really very fluid at the moment, please feel free to chuck it at the raffle and grab yourself a ticket. And I hope you win is all I'll say. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, I don't know if you followed the Team Australia raffle from last year, but like people who donated big, like it was so weird. Like I think it was like 2 or 3 people won like multiple prizes in a row. It was just wild. It looked at the little shade. It's like, hang on, what's going on here? So look, maybe there's something in the water. So maybe with raffle tickets, if you bid a bit extra, might win a bit more. So and I don't know. It was a funny story. So at a local event in Wagga Wagga, there was a guy who there's like you spend an X amount of dollars, like fundraiser thing. And for like 3 years in a row, the same dude won the big prize, but he spent like $100+. And it was like a Warhound Titan, a full army, and stuff like that. So look, for people who spend big, you win big. So it's a good investment. I mean, look, your Vanguard investment's not going to give you that much return in that short amount of time. So
exactly.
There you go.
Shove your ETFs, buy Warhammer stonks. Please get advice from your tax accountant. I'm not. I'm an influencer.
Yeah, fuck crypto. Just go raffles. It's basically the lottery, but you actually win. So there you go.
It's a lot less volatile. I'll tell you that.
There you go. So no, thank you, Nick. This has been fantastic. And before we wrap up, so I just got some final plugs and shout outs. So obviously we guys, or us guys in Down on 40K on Patreon. So if you guys want to attend some local events early, we have one this week or this next weekend as the time of this recording in Sydney, which sold out. So shout out to those lads. But if you want early access to tickets or you want to help promote or support the show, any amount of help goes a long way. So really, really appreciate it at patreon.com/downunder40k. And then also we have TT Terrain. So it was CX Custom 3D in Terrain. They do some amazing work. So look, you may not need it in AoS. You might use them for some damaged, ruined buildings, and they'll work perfectly. I mean, look, I'm sure you're a Sons of Behemoth enjoyer of smashing buildings and smashing stuff up. So look, but if you want some 40K terrain, which is beautiful, and MDF, TT Terrain is fantastic, which was CX Custom 3D in Terrain, the official terrain sponsor of Down Under 40K. So shout out to those lads. As Nick alluded to before as well, Emperor, so emperor.cc. If your local hobby store doesn't have stuff, you can go to Emperor and buy some great things. And then last but not least, what we all love, some beautiful dice. Look, a tradition at many team events is exchanging dice. And what better place to get your own beautiful dice at D6 Designs AU? They're on Etsy, and use code DU40KL for 10% off. So hooroo to those lads. So yeah, thank you very much, Nick. This has been an absolute pleasure. It's been very hard to keep a straight face, and I've failed on multiple occasions. You're a savant with words and a amazing guest to have on. So really, really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your European adventure. Try not get arrested. I mean, I'll get fine for a decent exposure. Look, it's low bars, but I'm sure you'll do fine. Look, I'm sure you'll do okay. And look, I don't know if you know about the history in 40K, but allegedly at this certain location after the World Team Championships, many people go jumping in the river and they only get fined. So you might be able to do the same in Amsterdam. So unlike those Italian tourists which got arrested and deported from the Trevi Fountain. So you'll be fine. You'll be fine, I'm sure.
It's a cheap one-way ticket home anyway. I'm coming home, so I should have paid for the ticket. I should have done that. Damn it.
Oh, idiots. What are we doing? I'm like, See, that's a smart thing. You may not be able to arrive in said country again for a while, but express pass home, avoid all the delays and stuff like that, right? So, good to know. Good to know. So, really, really appreciate it, Nick, and thank you everyone for watching. Have a great day. Bye bye.